Imagine an ocean so impressive that if you were there, you would feel like Thalassophobia on steroids. This is the Western Inland Sea, a prehistoric giant that stretched across areas we now know as the United States, Mexico, and Canada. With depths of 900 meters and creatures so fearsome that they would make anyone tremble just thinking about it. This sea was the setting for one of the greatest spectacles of ancient marine life. You would feel small compared to monsters like Tylosaurus, with its immense jaws, or Deinosuchus, a crocodile the size of a truck, which would leave anyone breathless. What if I told you that the end of this incredible habitat was caused by a cataclysm so huge that to this day it makes us reflect on how drastic changes can affect everything around us? In this video, we will dive together into this prehistoric sea, explore these fascinating creatures, and understand the devastating impact that completely transformed this underwater world. Get ready for an exciting journey that not only reveals the mysteries of this lost ocean, but also teaches us about resilience and adaptation. Come on, find out how life in the Western Inland Sea really was an epic adventure and what we can learn from its disappearance. Did you know that millions of years ago there was an ocean called the Western Inland Sea? This incredible place, which also had the nickname Hell's Aquarium, covered parts of the United States, Mexico, and Canada. Imagine a gigantic sea where we now have cities and lands, with warm, tropical waters. This ocean existed at the end of a time called the Cretaceous period, a long, long time ago when dinosaurs still walked the earth. Think of an ocean so large that it went from one side of the continent to the other, measuring up to 3,200 kilometers long and 970 kilometers wide. Even though it was so vast, its waters were relatively shallow, reaching a depth of around 900 meters. In this sea, there were huge and frightening sea creatures, which would make anyone think twice before entering the water. It was a totally different world, full of adventures and dangers that we can only imagine today. Did you know that the Western Inland Sea was a super hot and tropical place? It looked like a giant ocean, but it was shallow compared to the oceans we know today. Imagine a sea that stretched 3,200 kilometers long and 970 kilometers wide. That's almost like crossing an entire continent. It was as if a huge sea covered parts of the United States, Mexico, and Canada. Despite being so large, its depth was only 900 meters, which is much shallower than many of the oceans we currently have. This sea was full of adventures and surprises. Its warm, shallow waters were perfect for housing an incredible variety of sea creatures. Imagine swimming in a place where the sun shone brightly and the water was always pleasant. The Western Inland Sea was a true prehistoric tropical paradise, with many stories hidden in its depths. It was a sea full of life, where giant and incredible creatures made every day a new adventure. This sea was home to incredible and frightening sea creatures. Imagine swimming and suddenly encountering a mosasaur. These guys were like giant sea lizards but much scarier. There were three main types: Cleidasts, Platecarpus, and Tylosaurus, each more impressive than the other. Cleidasts, for example, was like a great sea hunter. It could measure up to 6 meters in length and moved quickly to capture its prey. Its sharp jaws and cutting teeth made it a feared predator. Platecarpus, on the other hand, was an incredibly fast swimmer. With a more aerodynamic body, it glided through the water like a rocket, chasing fish and other smaller creatures. It was about 4 meters long, but its speed and agility made up for its relatively smaller size. Now, Tylosaurus was the most feared of all. Imagine a 40-foot-long sea monster with a powerful jaw and knife-sharp teeth. He not only hunted fish, but also other marine reptiles. He was the undisputed king of the sea, attacking anything that crossed his path, even other mosasaurs. So, living in the Western Inland Sea was like living in a world full of sea monsters. These giant predators made every dive a true adventure, full of excitement and, of course, a little fear. Tylosaurus, the super predator of the sea. Have you ever heard of Tylosaurus? He was like the superhero of the ancient seas. Imagine a giant sea monster, about 40 feet long, the size of a school bus. Its teeth were as sharp as knives and its bite was so powerful that it could crush even the biggest enemies. Tylosaurus had a long, muscular body covered in hard scales, and it swam with enormous speed and power. But what made Tylosaurus really special was its courage. He loved a good fight and was not afraid to face other giants of the sea. Imagine him challenging even other huge predators like the mosasaurus. Its huge jaw and sharp teeth made it an unbeatable hunter, capable of capturing anything that crossed its path. Furthermore, Tylosaurus had super aggressive behavior. He was always ready for an exciting fight, using his powerful body to strike hard. He was like a great gladiator of the oceans, always looking for a new adventure. So if you were swimming in the Western Inland Sea millions of years ago, you would certainly feel like you were in an action movie with Tylosaurus as the main hero or villain. Deinosuchus, the giant crocodile. Have you ever heard of Deinosuchus, the giant crocodile that swam in the Western Inland Sea? Imagine a crocodile so enormous it could measure up to 40 feet long. That's like the size of 2 fire engines pressed together. And that's not all. Deinosuchus's bite was so strong that it could crush the bones of a t.rex, which is famous for having one of the most powerful bites of all dinosaurs. Deinosuchus wasn't just big. He had thick skin covered in bone plates, which protected him from attacks and made him look like a real walking armor. Its sharp teeth were like knives, ready to cut anything that came in its way. With his robust body and immense jaw, he was the true king of the marine crocodiles, and any animal he encountered had to think twice before challenging this giant. Deinosuchus was, without a doubt, one of the most feared and impressive predators in the prehistoric ocean. Ammonites, Plesiosaur. Did you know that in the Western Inland Sea, in addition to the huge predators, there lived really fascinating creatures called ammonites? Among them, there was one of the most impressive, Plesiosaur. Imagine a marine animal with a giant, spiral-shaped shell, looking like a huge sea snail. This shell wasn't just for decoration. It functioned as a resistant armor that protected Plesiosaur from many dangers. These ammonites were the largest ever, with shells that could be as wide as a small car. They swam calmly through the waters, hiding inside their hard shells whenever they felt threatened. It was as if they lived in huge, safe houses, floating in the sea like true giants with armored hulls. Plesiosaur and its fellow ammonites were part of a very exciting and vibrant marine world, full of life and mystery. They swam across this ancient ocean, each with their own shiny shell, creating an incredible spectacle in the depths of the Western Inland Sea. Did you know that the Western Inland Sea was home to an incredible variety of sharks? This sea had sharks of all types and sizes, making it a very interesting place. Among these sharks, there was Ptychodus, which was a very calm shark and did not worry about hunting other animals. He was like the quiet shark of the group, spending his time swimming calmly and looking for small fish to eat. Imagine a shark that just wants to swim and not get into trouble. But if you thought all sharks were friendly, you were wrong. The Ginsu shark was very different. He was like the bully of the group, always up for an adventure. Ginsu was not afraid of hunting, and he loved exploring the seas in search of a tasty meal. He hunted everything from smaller fish to imposing marine reptiles. The Ginsu was agile and fast, and its presence at sea made everything more exciting and action-packed. Therefore, the Western Inland Sea was not only a place full of fascinating sea creatures, but also a vibrant environment with sharks that had very different behaviors and lifestyles. Each shark had its own way of living, which made this ancient ocean a very dynamic and lively place. Did you know that the Western Inland Sea had a giant fish called Xiphactinus? This fish was so huge that if you saw it swimming, it would look like the size of a school bus. Xiphactinus was no ordinary fish. He had a huge mouth, full of teeth as sharp as knives. And what was most impressive is that he could swallow whole fish and even other marine animals, without even having to chew. Just imagine, a fish so big that, if you looked inside, you could see a small fish swimming in its belly, like a mini aquarium. It swam through the waters with surprising speed, using its large mouth to capture anything that passed by. The Xiphactinus made the Western Inland Sea a place full of action and excitement, as no one knew when this big guy might appear. The presence of this giant made the sea even more exciting and a little dangerous. If you were there, you would always have to be alert, as finding a Xiphactinus meant that the sea was full of surprises and unexpected adventures. Have you ever heard of plesiosaurs? They were like superheroes of the sea, with a very special trick. Imagine a marine dinosaur with a super long neck, which looked like a huge snake, but with a dinosaur's head. These incredible animals used their long necks to reach and catch small fish and other foods that lived in the shallow parts of the ocean. Visualize a plesiosaur swimming slowly through the shallow waters, moving its neck like a pole to hunt for its favorite meals. With its long, flexible neck, it could capture smaller fish that swam around. While the rest of the sea was full of big, scary predators, plesiosaurs were the experts at finding and catching these little deep-sea delights. It was as if they were the great hunters of the shallow waters, always looking for the best bites. They made the ocean a fascinating place, full of incredible life and activities. Did you know that 66 million years ago, a gigantic asteroid made a huge mess on Earth? Imagine a huge meteor, the size of a city, that fell from the sky and hit with such force that it left a huge crater. This impact was so powerful that it changed the planet forever. Before this event, the Western Inland Sea was like a magical place full of incredible creatures. There were huge sharks swimming around, plesiosaurs with super long necks, and even a giant crocodile called Deinosuchus. The sea was vibrant and full of life, like a big underwater amusement park. But after the asteroid hit Earth, everything started to change. The impact caused major earthquakes and volcanic eruptions, and the climate was also altered. The waters of the sea began to change, and many of the incredible animals that lived there were unable to adapt to these new conditions. It was as if a great blackout had occurred, and the Western Inland Sea, with all its fascinating life, began to disappear. The asteroid impact caused the sea, which was once so full of life, to transform and become a very different place. Over time, many of the wonderful animals that lived there disappeared, and the sea as we knew it changed forever. That magical and vibrant place became just a memory of the past, marked by the great change that the asteroid brought. So, after we explore the incredible Western Inland Sea, let's reflect on everything we learned and how fascinating this story truly is. Imagine a wonderful and exotic place, the Western Inland Sea, which was like a giant tropical aquarium 66 million years ago. This sea, which stretched for miles and miles, was a true underwater paradise, full of vibrant life and amazing creatures. It was not deep like the oceans we know today, but it was vast and rich in life. With its warm, shallow waters, it was home to an incredible variety of marine animals. Among the inhabitants of this sea were impressive predators. Tylosaurus, for example, was like the king of the sea, with its powerful bite and a very fearless way of facing other marine giants. Deinosuchus, a giant crocodile, swam through the waters with its huge mouth and sharp teeth, challenging anyone who crossed its path. We cannot forget the ammonites, such as Parapusosia, which had large, spiral shells that protected them, nor the varied sharks, such as the calmer Ptychodus and the feared Ginsu shark, always on the hunt. The Xiphactinus fish, the size of a bus, was also there, swallowing its prey whole, which made the sea an even more exciting place and full of surprises. And there were the plesiosaurs with long necks like snakes, that swam through the shallows of the sea, catching small fish and living peacefully, far from large predators. But, as in many stories, something terrible happened. A huge asteroid fell to Earth, causing enormous destruction. This impact was so strong that it altered the climate and transformed the environment of the Western Inland Sea drastically. Many of the incredible creatures that lived there were unable to adapt to new conditions and disappeared. Then the Western Inland Sea, with all its fascinating life, changed forever. What was a vibrant world full of underwater adventures was now just a memory of the past. And so, the story of the Western Inland Sea shows us how the Earth and its creatures are always changing, often in unexpected ways. It is a reminder that life is always dynamic and full of surprises, and that our planet has an incredible story full of adventures to tell. I hope you enjoyed exploring this ancient time and the wonders of the Western Inland Sea. Until the next adventure.